To be honest, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves was the first Uncharted game I played. I remember I was in high school at the time, and when the third game was on the way, I wanted to see what it was all about. So I borrowed Uncharted 2 from a friend, and it really blew me away from the start and never let go. It was a good introduction for me, and it got me excited, but when compared to the original, the sequel strongly improves on everything. Better gameplay, better visuals, better climbing without accidental suicides, and better characters and story writing. The story begins in the middle of the action as Nate is trapped on a hanging train car with a gunshot wound to the abdomen. Once he escapes the wreckage, he has a few close calls and we enter a flashback. I usually dislike storytelling like this, but here, it actually works really effectively and was a good first impression. I just wish it was just as effective the second time when we finally get there. Anyways, the story really begins as Nate comes across an old business partner named Harry Flynn, voiced by Steve Valentine, and a love interest named Chloe Fraser, voiced by Claudia Black. They explain that they need his help to steal some kind of lamp from a Turkish museum for a client of theirs. Once Nate and Flynn find the lamp, it turns out that when the blue resin inside it is lit, it reveals a map to Borneo where Marco Polo's lost fleet disappeared, as well as a clue to the fabled city of Shambhala, where a great treasure known as the Chintamani Stone is located. Shortly after, Flynn flat out betrays Nate, resulting in him getting captured and imprisoned. Sully eventually bails him out with Chloe's help, who claims that she had nothing to do with Flynn's betrayal, and decides to work as a double agent to help Nate. Once in Borneo, it turns out that this client is a Serbian warlord named Zoran Lazarevic, voiced by Graham McTavish. Just to say, the villains in this game are really well written and acted. Harry is a pretty likable bastard, and I give a lot of praise to Steve Valentine since he's really good at playing villain characters. And of course, Lazarevic is a great villain for being intimidating, sadistic, and just having enough development to be interesting. So Nate, Sully, and Chloe soon find an ancient Purba dagger which was the key to Shambhala, and of course everybody is fighting to obtain it. From there, a ton of stuff happens. Nate meets up with Elena again, he gets onto a train which, well, I'm sure you can figure out what happens, and is taken to a Tibetan village in the Himalayas. From there, he meets a few more interesting characters such as a Tibetan guide named Tenzin, and a former German explorer named Karl Schaefer, voiced by René Auberjonois. The main focus of this game is definitely the action. It can get really intense at moments where things constantly explode and fall apart, helicopters try to kill you, and even the segment on the train was exciting. It was enjoyable, and there were even segments when you had to climb outside the train cars to avoid flashing railway signs, so it never felt stale. The game is longer as a whole, and there are even several different locations as I mentioned before. Rather than just lush jungles, there's snow, foreign towns, and even Shambhala itself was gorgeous. The climbing is improved, and there's a lot more of it this time, with a few scripted moments when objects break or fall. The combat and stealth are better this time, and now you're actually rewarded with grenades and special weapons for stealth kills. If I had to complain about one thing, it's that Sully is barely in this. He played such a big role last time, but now he just sort of leaves. But they do compensate by developing a romance between Nate and Elena, and it's definitely one of the strong points in the story. When the two of them are on screen, you really feel their chemistry, and it's more credible than his relationship with Chloe. That's not to say it's bad, in fact it's actually played for a few good laughs. Chloe's a pretty fun character, her sexy attitude and suggestive remarks were actually really entertaining.
That's why it has to be an inside job. From someone they know and trust.
Oh. Okay, I see where this is going.
I'll just need a diversion. You give me 5 minutes in that tent, that's all it'll take.
Really? 5 minutes? Well, that's great. I won't even have to get my top off.
Chloe, I was thinking more like an explosion.
Or that.
Nate is a lot less cocky, and his facial animation was a lot better than before, even though his eyes kinda looked a little weird at times. Even Tenzin was a great character because of his partnership with Nate. He can't speak English, so the communication is non-verbal, and even the movements and reactions they give him were surprisingly really believable. This game is the perfect example of a sequel done right, with better gameplay, better writing, and better characters. It is definitely a must-own, because if you want a good PS3 or PS4 gem, you'll definitely strike gold with this one.
Seems like I am always saving your ass.
Well, it is an ass worth saving.
Oh. Is that an ancient Tibetan ritual dagger in your pocket?
Well, maybe I'm just happy to see you.
Yeah, hello.
So this is the key to everything.
Yes, it is. Marco Polo's passport to Shambhala.
What do we do with it?
Ah! I have no idea, actually. I do know Lazarevich won't get very far without it.
I wouldn't underestimate him, you know. He and Flynn have been tearing this city apart. They must have leveled dozens of temples already. So what's our next move? Nate? I hate it when you do that.
Check this out. You see this symbol?
Yeah.
Look up there.
Okay, I see the resemblance, so what does it mean?
It means we know how Marco Polo found his next clue. The temple we're looking for is going to be marked with this emblem. Now all we have to do is find it.
You do realize there are literally hundreds of these temples throughout the city.
Yes, but if we found a higher vantage point...
We could spot our needle in the haystack.
Right.
There's a hotel not far from here.
Chloe, now is not the time.
It's easily the tallest building in the city.
Right. Well, okay. That's good thinking.